Hello, homeschool colleagues. I hope you are doing well because I am super excited to share with you all about child psychology. Now, there's going to be a lot of information that I'm going to give you, but don't worry. I want this to be something that you just listen to and take in. You won't necessarily have to apply it, but if you get ideas of how the information applies to your situation, then that would be amazing. So let's get started. Everyone nowadays agrees that education shapes the mind and heart of children, but psychologists have long debated how they are shaped. Early on, psychologists believed that the simple transfer of knowledge is the way to shape a child via lecture, reading, discussion, copy work. Others have believed that the shaping of children comes through stimuli known as classical conditioning, which was developed by Ivan Pavlov. And this is where a child is seen like an animal and they react from basic need to stimuli or things that are a stimulus for them without even thinking or choosing. This is known as the stimulus response. Another belief of shaping child behavior is called operant conditioning. This was developed by B.F. Skinner, and this shows how positive reinforcement is better than punitive discipline. All of these are external causes that have to do with factors outside of the child. The theories explained in this lesson will be a summary of ideas having to do with the child's internal being and how that affects behavior and the shaping of children. In the study of child development, it has been debated that children are either the main drivers of their development based on their genetics, with parents and teachers playing a supportive role, or parents, teachers, and others are the main drivers of the development of children based on circumstances and the environment. However, we know now that they both work together. The environment and the child's genetics work together. You cannot have a good child development outcome without the influence of parents and others. On the other hand, we know each child was born unique with a promising future, amazing potential, and endless possibilities for the future. Working together with informed minds can help form a child that will make us proud. Let's begin with a basic idea of what child psychology is. Child psychology comes from the study of psychology, which is the study of the mind and behavior. Child psychology studies cognitive development, social and emotional development, moral development, and physical development. Developmental psychology is a broad topic, but I want to introduce you to the main theorists who have developed these theories about child psychology. The first child development theorist is Jean-Jacques Rousseau. He developed the 3 stages of child development. He identified the first stage, 0 to 12, when a child is mostly guided by their emotions and impulses. The second stage, from 12 to 16, children develop more of their reasoning skills. The final stage of child development is from the age of 16 and above, when the child is able to take on more responsibility and experience personal independence. The second psychologist is Jean Piaget. He developed the theory of cognitive development. He divides cognitive development into 4 stages: sensory motor, pre-operational, concrete operational, and formal operational. In the sensory motor stage of the cognitive development, from age 0 to 2, children use their senses to learn about their environment. In the pre-operational stage, from 2 to 7, children use language and pictures to communicate. They also use their intuition more than logical reasoning and characterize inanimate objects as having human emotions. For the concrete operational stage, from 7 to 11, children rely more on logic and reasoning to make sense of concrete ideas. In the last stage of cognitive development is formal operational, from age 12 and beyond. Children use abstract reasoning to make sense of abstract ideas. They're able to add to a complexity of thought in what they're learning. A further theory in cognitive development is explained in Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom's taxonomy was developed in 1956 by Benjamin Bloom, who is an American educational psychologist. His taxonomy was organized into 3 domains of learning objectives: knowledge-based, emotion-based, and action-based. The knowledge-based domain, which is more cognitive, explains how children can develop a greater ability to recall facts, explain ideas, apply information to new situations, synthesize ideas, judge what they learn, and create original and independent thought. The emotion-based domain, called affective, expounded on by Krathahall and Maciah in 1964, explains how children can receive and listen to various experiences, respond and participate in discussion, value and express personal opinions, organize personal values and beliefs, characterize or rate personal values and beliefs. The action-based domain, psychomotor, expounded on by Dave in 1970, explains how children can perceive with their senses activity that's going on around them, respond to specific situations, develop specific skills in a certain area, create habits that can be performed with confidence and proficiency, perform complex skills with automaticity, adapt skills to fit new situations, and form new skills to solve a specific problem. The third psychologist is Erik Erikson. He developed the theory of social development. He divides social development into 8 stages. Each stage describes the crisis that needs to be overcome and the objectives toward that end. The stages are infancy, toddlerhood, preschool years, early school years, adolescence, young adult, middle adulthood, and late adulthood. The infancy stage is where the child builds trust if their basic needs are met. And in the toddlerhood stage, children learn to make decisions for themselves or risk feeling shameful. During the preschool years, children need to take initiative toward being independent or they will feel guilty. In the early school years, children enjoy doing tasks and feeling industrious to overcome feelings of inferiority. The adolescent stage is when children identify their sense of self and find their place. Otherwise, they will be confused. When children enter young adulthood, they seek to form close relationships and gain the capacity for intimacy, or they will feel isolated. Middle adulthood and late adulthood are further explained in the handout. These stages are important in knowing what the main emotional goal is for each stage. If children are having an emotional problem, it might be because of a lack of accomplishment for a specific stage. If children don't get what they need out of the stage of life that they are in, they can always go back to get that. It's never too late to learn. The fourth psychologist is Lawrence Kohlberg, who developed the theory of moral development. He divides moral development into 3 levels, and each level has 2 stages. The levels are pre-conventional, from age 0 to 6, conventional from 7 to 11, post-conventional, and post-conventional from 11 years and up. In level 1, stage 1, called obedience punishment, infants have no idea of what is right and wrong. Their motivation is to avoid punishment. The second stage, in level 1, called self-interest, preschoolers are motivated by rewards rather than punishment. Their motivation is self-centered. Level 2, stage 3, is called conformity. School-age children seek to get approval and maintain friendships. Their motivation is to be good. Stage 4, in level 2, is called authority and social order, where school-age children are orientated toward rules and maintaining order in their family and community. Their motivation is peace and stability. The third level in stage 5 is called social contract, and this is where teens seek mutual benefit and a better life. They are motivated by community and connection. The last stage of level 3 is called universal principles, where adults develop principles of living to construct their own morality. Motivation in this stage is securing one's idea of absolutes. So the 3 main child development theorists are Jean Piaget and his theory of cognitive development, Erik Erikson and his theory of social development, and Lawrence Kohlberg with his theory of moral development. Now we move on to part 2 of the child development theorists. These theorists are not primary theorists, but they have had an influence in education. The next psychologist is Edward Thorndike. He developed the 3 laws of learning. The laws of learning has 3 parts: the law of readiness, the law of exercise, and the law of effect. The law of readiness is when a child has adequate preparation for learning something. The child's basic needs of rest, health, and physical ability must be met before learning can occur. A child must also not have any outside distractions or stress in the learning environment. Another aspect of child readiness is their willingness to learn. The second law of learning, the law of exercise, is when children practice what they are learning so they can retain it. If a child practices a learned skill, they are more likely to retain it. If they don't get enough practice, they won't retain it. Of course, there are exceptions, such as riding a bike or swimming, because that only takes one time of learning. But this summary is referring to the education of a child. The law of effect, the third law in Thorndike's laws of learning, is when a child experiences satisfaction and pleasure in the learning experience. If the learning experience is satisfying, then the child is more likely to learn more. Rewards in learning strengthen the association the child has with that learning. Learning that is not satisfying is not retained. In summary, the laws of learning is when a child has been properly prepared for learning, has adequate practice and review of learning, and has a pleasurable and rewarding learning experience. Learning is more likely to occur and have lasting effects. The next psychologist is Abraham Maslow. He developed Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The hierarchy of needs has 5 levels of human need. The physical and psychological needs must be met before a person can reach their full potential. The first level is psychological, which explains the basic needs of humans to breathe, eat, drink, sleep, and take care of personal hygiene. The second level is safety, which means that a person who has security of body, employment, resources, morality, relationships, health, and property, and feels safe emotionally and physically, is more stable. The third level is loving and belonging, which means that a person is ready to share themselves with family and friends. The fourth level is self-esteem, which says that when a person feels confident, respected, and accomplished, they are more comfortable with themselves. The last and highest level is the need for a person to feel like they have reached their potential and can use their creativity and problem-solving skills to improve themselves and help others. The first 4 levels are necessary. If a child does not have their basic and psychological needs met, they will not be able to actualize their true self. The last psychologist is Albert Bandura. He developed social learning theory. Social learning theory is a theory about the cognitive learning process different from the instinctual learning process that doesn't require cognition. There are 3 factors that influence the learning process: observation, imitation, and modeling. The observation factor of the learning process proposes that new behaviors can be acquired when the learner makes observations, reading, hearing, or watching, or when the parent or teacher gives direct instruction on how to do things. When a child sees another person's behavior, the child learns more about that behavior. The second factor that influences the learning process is imitation. When a child observes behavior, the child imitates the observed behavior. They don't need rewards or punishment to imitate the learned behavior. It's important to note that any activity that your child does may be reinforcing an unwanted behavior. So if you're noticing unwanted behavior, check to see what your child is observing and imitating. They might need a different model to imitate. The third factor that influences the learning process is modeling. Children can learn new patterns of behavior this way. Behaviors enacted by others reinforce or punish behaviors in the child. If their observation is positive, the child will react positively. When one child is praised for something positive in the earshot of another child, the other child accepts the behavior and acts accordingly without being told what to do. Additionally, if a child has a behavior that is negative, replace it with a positive behavior. This will help them model the right behavior. In review, if you want your child to behave a certain way, let them observe that behavior in action. Teaching them how to imitate will also help them imitate the behavior. And lastly, put good models in front of your children so they can learn new behaviors. Many of the theorists I explained here cover a little bit on the stages of physical development. But in the handout, I placed a link for a great site that explains the stages of child development. It has a table of milestones from infancy all the way to age 16. It describes motor, speech, vision, hearing, and social milestones of child development. It's very informative if you need it. On the handout, I also included the graphics that you see in my presentation. So in review, we have Piaget's stages of cognitive development, and you can use this in choosing age-appropriate activities. The next one is Bloom's taxonomy of thinking skills. You can use these skills in reading and reasoning assignments to measure intelligence. The next one is Erikson's stage of social development, and you can use this to understand the mental health of your child. Then we have Kohlberg's theory of moral development, and you can use this to understand the motives and drives in the behavior of your children. And Thorndike's laws of learning you can use in character development. And Maslow's hierarchy of needs can be used in nurturing your child's emotional and physical health. Now, that is a lot of information. I don't expect you to learn it all or memorize it, as I said before. This lesson is meant simply for exposure. If you're having trouble with one of your children academically, socially, behaviorally, or emotionally, this information might help. It can be used as a reference, but it is not essential in homeschooling. Understanding child development helps us be more thoughtful and intentional about how we educate our children. We want to shape them in the way that contributes to their development. Going back to the definition of education, we are to bring up children and form the manners and habits in them that we value. We must be willing to take notice of our own child's independent mind and furnish them with knowledge to help them make their own choices at any stage in their development. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.